Greetings Internet! Today let's talk about E3. I've been a follower of E3 for many years at this point. I've watched it grow bigger and bigger, get too big for itself, get smaller again, start growing again. Every year is different, it has its ups and downs, and unfortunately this year has been one of the down years for me. There just wasn't really a lot that was super interesting. First though, a complaint about day numbering. So there's the main trade floor show in LA, which is 3 days. Some major companies decide to have a press conference the day before all that starts, so that became known as day zero. The thing is, as time has gone by, more companies have wanted in on that, and there's not been enough time in one day for all those press conferences to happen, especially when you consider it's the same people there in LA that want to go to all of these things, so they try to not overlap them. And so some conferences are now scheduled for the day before day zero, which people have taken to start calling day -1, which as far as I'm concerned sounds completely stupid, and it's about time we renumbered the whole day starting at the beginning and just call it 1 to 5 rather than -1 to 3, because that's just stupid. Anyway, that little minor complaint out of the way, let's talk about the conferences themselves. And first up were EA. EA offered very little in the way of surprises, and I think pretty much everything they announced was a sequel of some sort. Titanfall 2, Battlefield 1, Mass Effect Andromeda, and a bunch of sports sequels, because there's a new one of those every year. And the only one of those I'm really interested in is Mass Effect Andromeda. I'm already a big fan of that universe and will eat up pretty much anything BioWare release. And while something like Battlefield 1 looks really pretty and impressive and is probably quite entertaining, these days I just can't get into competitive multiplayer. There was a time I did, way back in the original Doom and Quake days, and I played a crazy number of hours on Unreal Tournament, but I think really the last competitive multiplayer FPS I played was Unreal Tournament 2004. Because the thing is about those games, to be competitive, you have to play them a lot. You have to be practiced and all sorts. But these days I just can't enjoy that. There's so much pressure to be useful to the team, and that if you haven't practiced 10 hours every day for the last month, you'll get kicked off for being a noob. So any game that comes listed as multiplayer only, I instantly don't really care. So then came Bethesda, and admittedly expectations were fairly low for them, because after the massive conference that announced Fallout 4 last year, there was no way they were ever going to be able to top that. We're still at least 2 or 3 years away from anyone talking about Elder Scrolls 6 or Fallout 5, but then Bethesda did something slightly unexpected. They opened up with a brand new Quake. So I was initially excited, but that quickly went away. Given how well the new version of Doom was received, I still haven't actually played that yet. I was like, yes, I could totally get behind a new Quake, but it quickly turns out that it's not a single player game like Quake 1 and 2, it's just a multiplayer competitive battle arena like Quake 3. And so, just like I was explaining earlier, I was instantly not interested. There were expansions for DLC for Fallout 4, which were kind of cool, but not super massive or exciting. Don't have time to get into an MMO like Elder Scrolls Online at the moment, and it doesn't actually look that appealing to me. Prey looks kind of cool, but I wasn't immediately wowed, and Dishonored 2 also looks alright, but I'm not a huge fan of stealth style gameplay either. It always feels a bit slow to me. I also haven't played Dishonored 1, so I'd have to get around to that first. So yeah, not particularly exciting. So then there was Day Zero, which kicked off with Microsoft. They announced various bits of new hardware, which are all fair enough, but I don't actually own an Xbox anyway, so I'm only interested in their PC offerings. They listed a bunch of their games as exclusive to Xbox One and Windows 10, but if they specifically mean Windows 10, not just Windows in general, that must mean they're going to be pushing them in their own app store, which as far as I'm concerned may as well not exist. So from my point of view, that's kind of pointless. Unless these things eventually get a release on something like Steam, I'm probably not going to pay much attention. Of the games they showed anyway, I didn't actually really care for any of them. There wasn't a single one where I was like, OMG, I must play this game as soon as possible. The only thing Microsoft usually have going for them is that they usually put the most effort into the actual show itself. But even this year that wasn't the case. Sony beat them out on that, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Then there's the PC Gaming Show hosted by PC Gamer magazine, which as a PC gamer generally is the one I should be most interested, but unfortunately it's usually the most terrible of shows. Although admittedly they've only been doing it for a couple of years at this point, so maybe they'll get better, but it's just kinda cringeworthy and not very good. I'm very interested in Dawn of War 3, but the footage they showed, although it was admittedly pre-alpha, looked kinda terrible. And there was nothing really else that was a major new announcement that we didn't already know was coming. Then there's Ubisoft, who always have the most cringeworthy of shows, and this year was no exception. Watch Dogs 2 looks cool, but I don't know whether it's a game I will ever get around to playing. I have no interest in open world extreme sports, and I certainly don't need Just Dance 2017. What I am interested in though is the new South Park game. That did look fun. And then finally there was Sony, who decided to go all out and treat their audience to a live orchestra on a massive stage and all sorts of epic visuals. It looked amazing. Days Gone looks interesting, but I'm starting to worry we're getting to the point where there's too many zombies in gaming. Horizon Zero Dawn looks amazing. I really want to play that. As does Detroit Become Human. The amount of choices and emerging gameplay that they seem to be hinting at in that look amazing. And Death Stranding looks like a suitable weird nonsense thing that I have no idea what's going on there, but it's intriguing. But the problem with that is the PS4 games are often the least likely to ever get a PC release. I don't believe any of the Quantic Dream games have been released on PC, so I'm likely never going to be able to play Detroit Become Human. Kind of ignoring the games themselves and whether I will actually ever get to play them, and just taking the conferences as a piece of entertainment. It was definitely Sony who had the best show and was the most entertaining. So as is traditional to say who won E3, this year it was definitely Sony. Technically there was a Nintendo event after that, but they don't do it live anymore. It's all just a pre-recorded broadcast video, which is understandable because it is expensive to put on these shows and a lot of their staff don't actually speak very good English, so they always needed live translators and things like that, whereas on video they can pre-burn in subtitles. But I've given so little thought to Nintendo over recent years that I didn't even bother watching that this year. It seems like the highlight of that was Zelda, but that's not a series I'm particularly into either, so I'm glad I didn't bother. Although some of the fancy physics and graphics things do look kind of nice. One thing to note this year compared to all other years, there was a lot of talk of virtual reality. But I've already gone on enough in this video, so I think that's an entirely separate topic. So do you have any thoughts on this year's E3? Any particular games you were interested in? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.